We live in an 80-year-old barn that was on my parents' property that we have converted. When my parents first bought the property, there's horses in here, and we used to come in the hayloft to climb around. We put up a basketball hoop, so we would kind of hang out. Growing up here and seeing it as a barn, I could never imagine this old, dusty, dirty barn transformed into a nice, cozy home.
We both grew up here in Medina, Ohio. It's like, your classic Main Street, USA type of town. We met when we were in elementary school. We dated in high school. After college, we moved back to Ohio because both our families are here, and got married and had kids.
It's a great place to live, especially if you have kids, because you can send them outside and they can play in a creek or climb a tree or whatever, and that's kind of how I grew up.
Andrew's parents, they own 50 acres of land here, and on the property when they purchased it was a farmhouse and this barn. So when we moved back to Ohio, the farmhouse was available. It's, everything you could sort of hope for moving back to your hometown.
And then the first kid came and things got a little smaller, and the second kid came and it got even smaller.
Our first instinct was to build, and when that seemed like not realistic, Andrew's mom was like, oh, well, why don't you guys renovate the barn?
We knew the barn was structurally pretty sound, so we're like, okay, we can envision how this would work, but ultimately, all the steps along the way, no.
We started off with a family friend architect to help us, just get the process started, and started changing direction a little, so we wanted to find somebody else who had a lot of experience working on barns.
They found us because they went on Houzz and they saw one of our projects, which is our home and office, which is a bank barn built in 1810.
Tim's profile on Houzz, it was so, I guess it was just compelling because we knew he had done it before.
For decades, we have been doing historical structures, farmhouses, old buildings.
He had really great reviews, so everyone said that he did really amazing work.
And Houzz, it's all verified, so it's a very reliable source for that kind of information. We showed him our plans that we had, and he instantly said yes to this, no to this is gonna work, this isn't gonna work. And yeah, I think that was a point where we knew, okay, this is possible, and I think we found the person who can make this happen for us.
First, we analyze if the structure is sound enough to be converted into a home. And we felt that it was. That was step number one. Step number two, we went through the design elements we had done before with Crystal and Andrew and recommended we wanted to bring it to their barn, and they liked that. And then number three, it was the design layout of what they wanted. And then number four, how do we keep the structural integrity of the barn and yet still make it look to the way they want? For example, with this structure, the large windows that we have at the one gable end took a lot of engineering.
We wanted to make it feel like the access to the outdoors was like right at your fingertips.
This barn, it is extremely unique with its bracing that holds it up. It gives it integrity and beauty, and we had to be very careful as we cut into these braces, how do we make it work to still keep it strong? For the design concept, we collaborated by using the photographs from Houzz, and they have their idea books. They share those with me, and then we start going back and forth with that.
One of the things I loved about Houzz is that you could filter by your style. So being able to, narrow down different looks was helpful.
So they were coming back with this very open design, rustic and yet a contemporary blend. So when we started designing railings and the windows and the kitchen, et cetera, it all started following that pattern.
I essentially wanted what we have now, a kitchen that leads into the dining area, that leads into the family room. So if I'm in the kitchen, I can talk to people.
You have to realize with a barn, everything has to follow the scale of the barn. That's with the windows, the doors, the lighting, the kitchen. So the trick is, how do we get the rooms to be comfortable size, keep them in proportion?
We added the loft in the barn, one, just for more living space, but also to enclose the kitchen, because we felt like if there's not a ceiling, where do things end?
We wanted to have something where multiple groups could hang out together and still be together, but have different sort of seating areas. We have the reading nook, which is it's a place that is separate from the main living space, but it's still connected, so you still feel a sense of togetherness with people who are doing different activities.
So we always knew that the bedrooms would go downstairs, and it's pretty simple down there. We knew we didn't want a big bedroom or a big bathroom. We don't hang out in our bedroom, we hang out up here. That's the kind of part of the house where, well, if you look at our stairs are right in front of the door. It's as if to say to a visitor, like, just go upstairs. Like down here is kind of like for us.
With the entrance stairs, we like to have them, they basically float, and we like to recycle the wood, which is what we did. Those are recycled timbers. We like that grand look. A stair in a typical home would be too small. Again, going back to scale, that stairwell has to be in scale with the barn.
With the barn, we knew we weren't going to get away from it looking and feeling like a barn. Just the fact that it being a barn, we knew we didn't have to accentuate that in any way.
Andrew and my style is sort of eclectic. I mean, we wanted it to be more modern just in terms of like how the finishes were, just because like it's a barn. I mean, we don't want to overdo it with the rustic look. Like, we got it, it's a barn. We also like a lot of natural finishes. So we kept the natural, the wood floors.
We knew we wanted to keep the floors in the barn just because they're unique. Plus they're laid at an angle, which we always thought was a little bit more interesting just visually.
They loved the look of the old, so we figured out ways to work around it with the radiant heat and the added insulation, and they get the old true look to the barn, which is what they wanted.
Tim really helped with energy usage within the house. He was very adamant about doing radiant heating, just because to do forced air in this huge loft space it just would have been so expensive and not very efficient at all. He had a plan as far as what to do with the roof.
My favorite part of the house is actually the framing that holds up the roof. When I first crawled in here, and it was a dirty mess, and I got up on these rickety stairs to the main floor, and I looked up and saw the structure, it was phenomenal. Not many barns are like this, and we knew right then and there we had to preserve that. So we ended up putting insulation panels over on top on the outside, and then built a new roof on top of that. So they have all the energy efficiency, but they still have the big look inside.
He knew what were the important things to us, so that he really tried to okay, if this is the most important thing to you, here are other areas where you can cut down. We had probably 9 custom windows when we started, and then he's like, well, if you reconsider these windows, you can cut down X amount of your budget.
First and foremost, Tim thought about the practical side of stuff, not just the aesthetics of it.
We got those 9 custom windows down to 4, and I feel like it still is just, I think it's actually better than what we originally had planned.
This barn originally did not have a bank, so it is not known as a bank barn. But Andrew and Crystal wanted a bank.
I guess one of the biggest challenges was access to the outdoors from the second floors. I just didn't like the idea, especially with small children, of looking out the window and seeing them out there and needing help and having to go run down the stairs to get outside.
We came up with a way of making a wall, backfilling it, putting sandstone on either side, and to this day it looks like that bank has been here forever. We're very excited because it turned out the way that we had planned it. And of course, that was the collaboration with Crystal and Andrew.
The build process itself, you just have to have a lot of patience. I feel really proud of it. I mean, it was a big undertaking.
The saving of the wood floor, the grand stairway, the unique heating and cooling that we did, the bank, you put all those elements together, and it really makes this this is a one-of-a-kind barn home, and it will never be duplicated.
It's nice to know that we had this big goal for a really long time, and that we made it happen. And also that we have a space that we can make our own.
After high school, I moved away, and I kind of thought that I would stay away. I never thought that I would come back home and build something that I knew I was going to be in forever. I guess there's just something that drew me back. It feels like home. It's like I've been running around the same fields for 20 some years. I do like to think that maybe one of the kids will live here one day, and I have plans to plant a bunch of trees that I'll never see grow, but hopefully, they will.